På engelsk eller på dansk?
På engelsk.
Right.
Vi starter med at høre, hvad er dit navn?
My name is Jeppe.
Your name is Jeppe.
Jeppe. Yeah, that's
All
enough.
right. Welcome to Breaking the Narrative. So Jeppe, could you please describe to us what your idea of utopia is? Utopia is in the good place.
The good place. The good place is one without restrictions, in my mind. So utopia is where no one is restricted by material means. That is the end of scarcity, basically. The exact nature of that place, I have some troubles defining myself. Actually, it's kind of hard to place it, both geographically and where it is, and also in time and in space. Actually, because a part of that's strange, but it's basically about not having material restrictions, at least material restrictions, and be free to do what you want to do, really. But how you structure that in a way that you're free to do what you want to do without electing to not be part of society, because I don't like the idea of being. You can't in the classical Arthur C. Clarke description of utopia, one of them at least, is the Solaris place, the place where it's an entire planet where everything is done by robots. But because you have to have absolute freedom for the individuals, you can't have very many people on this planet. You can basically have like 10,000 people around, because the moment you start having other people around, you start having restrictions on what people can do. I don't like that idea. That idea is strange. It doesn't really fit with the good life. Because are you human at that point? Basically, are you part of humanity? So that's a strange balancing act, having the material means to do whatever you want and the opportunity to do whatever you want, but at the same time being part of something essential, undefinably essential.
Is that essentialness that you're referring to? Is that maybe responsibility for other living beings or other people?
There's value in those things. There's value in being a person in a society, in being a person in a community. Without those, it's hard to define yourself. That's one aspect of it. It's hard to define anything without the other, without the opposition, without the contrast. So that's one thing. If you don't have other people around, how do you define yourself as a person? Because those things are all relative, and they're relative to those around you. But also, there's all the evolutionary traits we have as human beings, with compassion, with nurturing, with being kind, and so on, and supportive, and all those other things that are emotionally rewarding in their own right, and without which you have a hard time. I think you would have a hard time having a good life. And if we're talking utopia, that's definitely one of the things you need to have. That's an emotionally rich life as well. So, but those are the things. And the classical utopia that I have in my head is scientifically based and sci-fi based. So that's sort of the Star Trek sort of reality, where you're not bound by anything, because you have materializers and you have all sorts of productive means. That means that if you want something, you can have it made. You can have it made fast, and it's always available. But there's also the aspect of mobility, being able to go where you want to be and experience what you want to experience, and not being bound basically by the laws of gravity, as it is, the laws of reality, and those things that you can transcend those. Go to a place where you can fly for yourself. You experience all these things in low gravity environments, or in high gravity environments, or in all sorts of environments.
Okay.
So I think that my utopia is probably a spaceship of some sort. It's a spacefaring society of some kind, with access to a multitude of realities through a multitude of places, of planets, which form a multitude of experiences, various places you can go to. So that's the sort of utopias I've been exposed to, and I like those ideas. But how you do that without becoming
how do we transition to?
The transition is grow wise, right? That's the traditional way. You just move society forwards in a sort of scientifically literate and compassionate way, and at some point we'll become, kind enough to each other and become enough masters of the universe that we can basically do these things. But
can you say a few words about how the destruction of the environment and the social injustice that we witness in these times, and we have seen through many decades and centuries, how that clashes with your ideas of utopia, and which values that underpin it?
The transition period is difficult. I don't know how to answer the question in that regard, but if I can step beyond that to the end phase, the spacefaring civilization with unlimited potential and so on. One of the problems is that you need vast amounts of material to do this. You need vast amounts of energy, and you need vast amounts of building material, basically, to build these vessels or habitats or whatever you need to float around in space with. So absolute protectionism doesn't work. You'll have to basically cannibalize moons or asteroids or whatever. You have to disturb the environment in some places. But you can always argue that if you argue that nature has an inherent value, then this doesn't fly at all. But I don't see how it flies anywhere. There's the value must be defined better than just it exists in nature and therefore it has value. It must be defined as something like it exists in nature and it has potential to be something or to do something or to be interesting in some way, and that basically means that barren rocks floating in outer space, those are not as interesting, so those we can use as material. Or some stars.
You're talking about use values.
Not exactly use values, but if you're free to take resources from where you want to take them, then you can take them from the least destructive places, but you still need to take them.